Hello, and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, bringing you another Old Man Orange Presents Via VHS episode. One of them from the rarities vault that we have from back in the day that just never got put out. So come join us for another fun-filled retro movie review. Let's jump on in.
So welcome back to the Via VHS Retro Movie Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wesley, along with my co-host, Spencer Scott Holmes.
Hey.
Well, we're back. We just recorded an episode 5 minutes ago.
We did. We know what I mean. I didn't even leave my seat. I'm still just sitting here.
Yeah. We're same shirts, same like everything. It's, it's
I'm gonna feel like Danny Glover where I'm just sweating bullets because LA's having a heat wave and I'm just gonna have to like change my shirts every once in a while.
Boy, they're dressed to the nines.
Or be like Bill Paxton, because when they introduced Bill Paxton, he's just got a suit on. He's just got like sweat stains just going down it. And it's just, I'm like, I feel like, I know that they're saying it's supposed to be really hot out there, but I'm almost thinking that like it probably legitimately is really hot out there too.
Well, the thing is, okay, so we're talking about Predator 2, by the way. Rewind review, Predator 2, 1990. We just did the first Predator. We're doing Predator Week because Prey is coming out. Well, as you've heard, this Prey's already been out, and we're doing a fast forward for that. So, but yeah, the heat in Predator 2, huge problem for me. They're dressed really well, like a lot of 1990 fashion going on. There's that scene. We'll review the movie in a moment, but speaking on that scene where Danny Glover goes to like the graveyard, and he's got a hat, a jacket, long sleeve, like a thick looking jacket, like a long one.
Yeah.
They say at the very beginning of it, like there's a heat wave going on. It's like 100 and whatever degrees, and everybody's dressed in long sleeves. It's like, it's literally the opposite of the first Predator movie.
Well, yeah, it's funny because, like, I've always thought that way. I remember Lethal Weapon watching that movie as a kid, and I was like, well, like everybody in that one's always dressed in long sleeves and jackets and all that stuff. I'm like, every single time I've ever been to Los Angeles area, like it's always hotter than hot. You know what I mean? Like it's never like a nice temperature or anything like that. And I think it's just where I come from. I come from the mountains, so like. Like a lot of times people think, oh, it gets down to like 60 degrees and they start putting on like parkas and so on like that. I'm like, 60 degrees? That's still like shorts and t-shirt weather. You know what I mean? Like, and I just can't figure that. I'm like, in Los Angeles, it feels like you're going to be dressing like you're on Muscle Beach every single day. Like, why would you be wearing anything else down there? It's so hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this movie's weird when it comes to the temperature. That's the thing that bothered me most about this movie, I think, was but so much to say about Predator 2. I will say that this will not be as positive as a review for Predator, but I think also this movie may be unfairly hated a little too much.
Yeah, I like this movie a lot. I mean, Predator 1 is the definitive classic, but I still love the living daylights out of Predator 2.
There's the things that to me, they're glaring problems with it that could have been fixed, and it could have been as good, if not better. But there are a lot of things I appreciate about Predator 2 that it did for the franchise as a whole. So
it adds a lot to the lore of the Predator and adds a lot of like his weapons and so on like that too. Yeah,
and it's got some 90s style. It's nice, kind of going back to the 90s, and it definitely feels like more of a 90s movie, even though it's just the first year.
Even though it's technically it's probably shot in the 80s when you think about it, because the movie comes out in 1990. Which pretty much tells me, I mean, it's November 1990, but that means it probably was shot, in late 89 or something like that.
Yeah, interesting movie. But we have so much to say. But you speaking of the 90s and going back, last one was in the 80s. Now we're in the 90s. So we get a little bit of different decades with these movies, but kind of makes me want to really go back in time, kind of fire up a flux capacitor and maybe go into the Flashback Portal. What do you think?
I think we need to.
I think we need to as well. So we're going to do it right now. All right. So this time we're going to switch it up. So last time we started with the music and then went to the box office.
Well, we start with news first because we had Gorbachev tear down this wall or Reagan smash.
Nothing as interesting happens this week. I looked up the news for November of 1990. It's basically the early 90s. It was like everybody's mad at Iraq and shit's about to happen, but it hasn't happened until it does happen, and then it happens.
Well, if I was slightly older, when this movie comes out, this is what I would have went to for my birthday, because when I'm looking at the time frame here, this is ideally lined up for my birthday. Yeah, instead, I'm probably going to see Ferngully instead. But you know what?
Are you? Oh, I think we're looking. You might be looking at the wrong year.
I'm looking at November 21st, 1990.
Oh, I don't see that. I think Ferngully was next year.
Oh, is it next year? Oh, never mind. Oh, I mean, for some reason I thought that was 1990, but
I know what you'd be seeing on your. I actually went to the theater this week that this came out. I didn't see Predator 2, but I saw what was number 1 at the box office. So that's what I think where we should start is the box office.
Okay, let's box office up then.
Yeah, real quick again. I say it every episode now. Sister's probably tired of it. Flashback Portal. We go back to the week the film was released, and we look at the pop culture surrounding said film. This week's Predator 2. So we're going back to November 21st, 1990. I think this movie was released on a Wednesday, so it was going to take advantage of the Thanksgiving holiday and the box office. Unfortunately, this film opens up against a pretty big box office. So we started number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Saw this in theaters. I think I saw it on opening week because I remember this. There was 2 movies I can remember asking to go see. Like the first 2 movies I remember. One was in March of 1990, and that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Begged to go. I had to see it.
Had to see it. Yes.
Yeah. So that was the first one. The next one was this year, and it's number 1 at the box office this week. Little John Hughes, Chris Columbus film called Home Alone.
Oh, yeah, there's another humongous movie to compete against.
Instant Christmas classic. A must watch.
Mm-hmm.
So Home Alone is number 1 at the box office, bringing 27 million opening weekend. Number 2 at the box office. We do have some Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably one of his least endearing films. Definitely the worst in this franchise is Rocky V.
Yeah, and I still like Rocky V. I mean, I'm going to say that probably comparative to the other, 7 movies or whatever the heck it is, 8 movies by now.
Yeah.
It definitely might be my least favorite. I'm not saying that I don't like a lot of stuff about it. There still is a lot that they had there. I think that movie gets a little bit unfairly judged.
To an extent. I mean, they finally kind of retire Rocky, which made sense at the time to an extent, but it's just, I don't know. It's I do not like Rocky V. I think I've only watched it once.
I mean, I've probably only seen it 3 times, if that even, but.
Yeah. Number 3 at the box office, not opening this week, one of the few films not opening this week. So when you look at this box office, the fact that this film is 3rd, bringing in $6 million, talking about what it's up against, especially with new movies, Child's Play 2.
Oh, God. And those movies are so big at that time, too.
Yeah. Did really well, 3rd at the box office. Number 4 at the box office is a film that released the same week, same day as Predator 2. 3 Men and a Little Lady.
No, there's another big one right there, at least for the time.
Another film, this is the first Disney movie I can remember watching on VHS. Because I had a friend who had just rented it, and I went over to his house and he watched it. The Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, that's one of my favorite Disney movies too.
Dude, the shot where the kid jumps off the cliff and the eagle catches him. I always remember that. I can remember that so vividly, seeing that as a kid.
Yeah, that's one of the movies that I feel like I saw. I don't think I did see it in theaters. I think I rented it on VHS.
Yeah.
Because I could vividly remember watching that movie for the very first time, being like, holy crap, being blown away.
There was some, this was Little Mermaid kind of kicked off the Disney Renaissance, and it's well animated, and it was kind of like a cultural thing. Rescuers Down Under isn't as big, but really kind of set the stage for a lot of animation going forward for Disney, because it was really, I remember there being a lot of really kind of mind-blowing things in that movie, and being really intrigued by it.
The weird thing too about Rescuers Down Under is that movie is okay, the Little Mermaid starts off kind of like what's going to come for the 90s style, But the Rescuers Down Under is almost still made in that 70s, 80s Disney style. It's almost like one of those ones like they were trying 2 movies at the same time. They're like, okay, we're going to try something kind of new and ballsy. We really haven't done a musical in a long time. So we're going to see if that doesn't work. We got business as usual with Rescuers Down Under. That will still fit into like the 70s, 80s style that we've kind of been going with for a while.
Yeah. There's a lot of interest. It's kind of caught in a weird area.
Yeah. Because it's kind of forgotten too, that one. Like I think of it very fondly, but I don't hear people bring that one up very often.
Well, also, I don't remember I can't think of any other Disney movies animated wise before this that had a theatrical animated sequel. Like
that's kind of true. Because that's the thing.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to.
A lot of straight to video ones for sure.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of, Return of Jafar kind of stuff, a little Marine 2. A lot of those. Some of those were decent.
So some of them are actually pretty good, but they do definitely have like it feels like it's, made for TV. Yeah, it does. Very rarely. The third Aladdin actually, they actually puts a little bit more back into that one.
Robin Williams comes back.
Yeah, Robin Williams comes back. The animation looks a little bit more slicker and so on like that. It doesn't have that TV animation look. Not saying that's a bad thing, but
Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head. There might be one, but I can't think of an animated theatrical sequel.
I think you're right. I don't think there is one.
Yeah.
No.
So that's a pretty big deal then.
Yeah.
It's weird that's the one they went with.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre one, you know what I mean? I feel when there's like so many others, but I think that Rescuers one also did do extremely good as well too. It wasn't like it was
I remember Rescuers Down Under more than the first one.
I do too. That one stands out a lot more to me because I've watched them actually. I want to say I watched Down Under first, then I came back to the other one.
Definitely. Yeah. Number 6 at the box office, a film that's been released for a while, but also another big mega hit. One of the biggest hits of that year, if I'm not mistaken. Ghost.
Yes, that movie was ginormous. That's actually one of the few like actual VHSs I remember. My parents had that was like not like a taped off TV one.
Yeah,
I think it was one of those ones that like they got it for like Christmas present or something like that. I don't think they went out and necessarily bought it, but it was like one of like the 5 movies that we had that were actually not actual movies, not just tapes.
Ghost. Number 7 at the box office, bringing in $4,500,000. Really close to Ghost. It could have been 6 easily, but number 7 is Predator 2.
Ooh, Predator 2 still coming in.
Yeah, it's just this should have been released at a different time.
Yeah, it's competing against too much stuff, and I think action movies. Now, granted, like compared to everything else that's kind of coming out, like the target audience is definitely a much different one because all these other movies are all kind of more family movies, or I'm going to say even girls movies and things like that. Predator 2 doesn't have a whole lot of action. I mean, like the people going to see Predator 2 probably could care less about seeing Home Alone, just saying. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones like its target audience isn't, or they're not going to go see Rescuers Down Under at this time period. You know what I mean? They're not going to probably want to go see Ghost. If they are, they're going to get dragged to it. Patrick Swayze was originally supposed to be in Predator 2, but
yeah, I just don't see this was a good time. Maybe September would have been better, or even Halloween time would make more sense than this.
Yeah,
but of course,
Predator is kind of a horror movie anyway, so it could fit there.
I'll just read real quick the rest of the list because there's a lot of stuff on here. But the other movies that are released at the same time are 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th at the box office. Robot Jocks, The Nutcracker Prince, Hidden Agenda, and a movie called Eating, which made $18,000. But the other big movies that it's going against, Jacob's Ladder, Dances with Wolves.
Just
to name a few, Quigley Down Under is there. Another there's just 2 Down Under movies. So
Australia was kind of popular in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah. Thanks, Men at Work.
Yeah, so that was really, it sounds weird, but there was a lot like in Crocodile Dundee and all that stuff. There was a lot of there's a lot of Australia kind of patriotism going on, at least in the US.
Wow. Well, let's look at the Billboard Hot 100 real quick. Oh, man. I'm looking at this real quick. I'm not feeling great about it. But there's some stuff there's some interesting stuff in here. So I'll go through the top 10 really quick because most of the interesting stuff is, of course, lower.
Number
1, Mariah Carey, Love Takes Time. You know, so that's Mariah Carey. More Than Words Can Say, Alias. You thought it was going to be More Than Words. No,
that's 92 or whatever.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah, it was in the future. More Than Words Can Say by Alias. Hey, she was on the last Billboard Hot 100 when the original Predator was out, and she's on this one at number 3. I think maybe in the same position. I don't know. I'm Your Baby Tonight, Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston, she's just there for the Predator. She should be on the Predator soundtrack for some reason. It just feels like it.
Yeah. Groove is in the Heart by D. Light. Groove is in the Heart. Is that right? Yeah.
I think so.
Because I Love You, The Postman by Stevie B. Something to Believe In by Poison is number 6.
Oh, there we go. At least there's some Poison on there. Makes me happy. That's what I need in life.
The Channel 55 episode with myself and Alex, which will be out when this is out. There's a lot of funny stuff in that episode, but when I learned that Alex's dad liked Bette Midler, they just messed with me so much. Because I was really close to him. I knew him pretty well, and I'm like, I can't. From a Distance by Bette Midler is number 7.
Makes you think of him right now.
Yeah. Pray, MC Hammer, number 8.
Hey, we got Pray coming up on Friday.
Yeah, Pray, but this is A-Y. That was E-Y.
Oh, yeah.
The MC Hammer one should pray.
I guess if he's praying on somebody, then he's going to be in that, R. Kelly kind of, section of life. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be praying on people if you're a musician.
That's too much there. Feels Good, Tony Tone. Knocking Boots. I feel like that's just been shown. They shows up all the time.
Knocking Boots. That just holds on.
What's Knocking Dub Boots? And this was just Knocking Boots.
Well, I just say of Knocking Boots the regular without the duh in it.
Real quick, some stuff. Number 11. It was number 1 a couple weeks before this. It's dropped down to number 11. A little song called Ice Ice Baby.
Oh, yeah.
That's number 11. We got some UB40, the way you do the things you do. Hearts on this one as well. Mm-hmm. Oh, stranded. I was waiting to get to number 18. High Enough, Damn Yankees.
Oh, there we go. Yes, Ted Nugent.
Yeah. There you go. So we got some of that. Wiggle It, 2 in a Room. That 2 in a Room should not sing a song called Wiggle It.
No.
Miracle from Young Guns 2, John Bon Jovi.
Oh, there we go. Yes. Great movie, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. I can't wait to do those movies. I
love them.
A lot of cool stuff. Miles Away by Winger, Cherry Pie by Warrant.
Oh, so there we go. We're getting our hair metal bands in there.
Yeah. Just a little further down the list, but they're all rising up, so they're going somewhere important. Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers and by somebody else was on here. We got some Phil Collins, Hang In Long Enough, and you'll get some Phil Collins. That's what you do. So, 90s.
Yeah. Well, see, this is like that's it. That's about the tail end. You're going to get some stuff there for the hair metal stuff, and then about a year or so, it's all gone.
Song that peaks at number 60, but this week is number 67 on the charts. Sorry, it's number 60 on the charts this week, and this is peak position, which I'm sharp by. Is a little song. Hey, little thing, let me let you kind of cause I'm on my arm, show off the hand, and now I'm around. Number 60.
No.
There you go. So that's your flashback portal for 1990. It sucks. I mean, I'm not thrilled. There's some cool stuff.
There's some stuff on there. You know, I mean,
it's always going to be something.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the early 2000s, you're going to find something.
Yeah, you're always going to find something at least, or at least something that could take you back in time. But
I just had to dig deeper than I wanted to.
I think that's the thing is you realize there is some good stuff on there, but it's always down the list.
Release Me peaked at number 1, but it's now 97 for Wilson Phillips. So there you go. Anyway, so that's your flashback portal. Thanks for listening to that. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about the possibly unfairly maligned or possibly fairly maligned sequel to the original Predator, Predator 2 from 1990, starring Danny Glover. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, so Predator 2. It could have been. It could have been as good. A lot of decisions they made were the right decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I just think execution-wise, kind of fell apart. But it's not the first one, right? I mean, it's just not.
No, that's the thing, is it's not the classic that the first one sort of is, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. And I know the biggest thing for it back in the day was it didn't have Arnold Schwarzenegger in it. So most people just wrote that movie off and said, no, Arnold, I don't care. Like they didn't have to watch the movie for them to like dislike it. I remember that being a lot of times in the 90s, is that was all it was. You know what I mean? And what I like about it is I'm like, well, one, I just love Danny Glover so much. So, you put Danny Glover in anything, I'm there. I'm 100% there. But the thing, too, it's like you got a lot of people in this movie. You got Bill Paxton's in here. And then you got, why am I drawing a blank on his name right now? But Gary Busey, you got him kind of going on. You got Robert Davi, and the villain from License to Kill. We did our podcast on that one there too. But he's playing kind of like a lot of these characters, like they're playing almost kind of background roles. But it's like, whoa, that's still kind of a big thing there. You know what I mean? You got Maria Conchita Alonso, which I always think of her also. She's in Running Man as well, for Arnold Schwarzenegger. So she kind of ties in there. I always like her, even though I can only think of a few movies she's in. Just those movies as kids stick to me a lot because it's Predator 2 and Running Man and so on like that. There's just all kinds of people in here. I mean, there's even Adam Baldwin's also in it too. There's just a lot of actors in this one. So it's in a weird way, it actually does sort of have almost kind of as big of a list of people as Predator 1. Now Predator 1 still kind of got just that little bit more top tier names. This one's kind of like for the people that dive deeper into it and so on like that. But like it's one of those ones that I think a lot of people they see. You might see Danny Glover, but you kind of forget about all these other people in there. But once you start to see the other people, it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. There's all these other things going in here.
Well, not only does that have kind of, a comparable cast, at least you could say. I mean, it doesn't have the megastar like Schwarzenegger, but everybody loves Danny Glover. I think the other thing about this is people with if you have Schwarzenegger, then you're going to go to the same. You're going to do it in the jungle again. It's going to be the same thing. What I love about Predator 2 is that it's a different time and a different place. It's a whole different environment. It's an urban environment. I love that they did that.
I think that's cool. I know that some people don't like that. I think that's a lot. I remember there be people also like, I just think that like the urban gangster thing's kind of stupid after you have like the special ops guys.
Well, they kind of say this in Predator, but everything's kind of blurring together a little bit. But it explains in this one that the Predator, it looks for conflict. That's what he searches out, and it makes more sense in this movie. Because there is kind of a conflict going on in Los Angeles in this film, which is 127 degrees and everybody's wearing like fucking wool, but whatever. But it's I love that they changed the environment, they changed the actors, and I think that's great. To me, the problems with it are execution stuff, and but it adds more to the story. It expands on the franchise. It just doesn't meet up to the expectations, I think.
And I think that's kind of it. That's why I think this movie is one of those movies, as time has gone on, this movie's much more revered nowadays. People looked pretty fondly on this one too, as far as, action sci-fi fans kind of go. Like a lot of people I know, they're like, oh yeah, I like Predator 2 quite a bit. I think it's just at the time, everybody's just expecting this to be, in a sense, like the Terminator 2 almost, in a sense, with Predator. But when you kind of switch all those actors around, that's always a tough one. Once you switch the main actor out, it's always really tough for people to wrap themselves around it. When, let's be honest, it can technically always be anybody and everybody. But you know what I mean? Like, we're here to technically see the Predator's our main character in a sense. He's in the title, but that makes it kind of hard. But I think once you go past that and you accept that and everything like that, and the stuff that is going on here is kind of cool. It's like you got this conflict. I mean, everybody was always looking, in the early 90s, that late 80s, early 90s of all that gang warfare in LA, people were kind of going, you know what, LA any time from now couldn't just break off and it's going to be Escape from LA. Like, I think people just thought that, like, either you're running with that idea or you're literally thinking that could happen, I feel like people are really thinking like this place is going to become, a war zone at some point. It's going to be kind of like a big old Civil War kind of area, and taking that and putting it a little bit in the future in this one and having it there and having Danny Glover be kind of like the everyman cop, just trying to Dirty Harry it and do the right thing. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love what they're doing with it. They said it in 1997, so 7 years in the future from when this is out. So conceptually, that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. Which I actually think Predator was set a couple years ahead, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No, because Predator is 1987 because it mentions that in Predator 2. They're like, 10 years ago.
That's right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because when Gary Busey's going to talk about Dutch, you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's... To me, I appreciate that they weren't trying to be formulaic and just copy the same beats as the first one.
Yeah.
But I think it needed to in this one. I think what hurts this film to me structurally is it needed, with the original Predator, you have that great opening scene where you get helicopters land, you kind of get to see all the characters and how they're acting on the helicopter, getting off, and you have your kind of brief introduction to them, and then you get the Dylan, you son of a bitch, the whole thing, and you break down what's going on. You're setting the stage.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to get to know these characters a little bit more. You see these big, muscly guys. They all have a little bit of different style to them. Mm-hmm. And like, what does this guy do? What does this guy do? And it's bringing you into it. And this movie just kind of throws you into some shit, like from the beginning. And like basically imagine if Predator started with the original Predator, but the big action sequence in the middle, like the 25 to 30 minutes in.
When they're taking out the guerrilla camp.
Yeah, which is insane. And it's great action scene, but that's the most action-y part of Predator.
Yeah, that's technically my favorite scene in the entire Predator movie. Like that's the one that like I could watch that over and over and over again. I just love that so much.
It's for 5 minutes to 5 to 7 minutes. That movie is Commando.
Yeah, and that part's so good.
Yeah, and you get the cheesy stick around and the one-liners and stuff.
Knock knock.
Yeah, the movie builds up to that though. Like you see Dutch, you get to know, you build the Carl Weathers stuff up a little bit. You're already kind of seeing that he's being deceptive a little bit. You got some of that going on. You have some dynamic between the characters going on, and then it throws you into that thing. Imagine Predator just started with the guerrilla camp and the explosions. That's what Predator 2 does. And then it tries to build some character moments after that, and you're just like, it's very convoluted, I think.
I think what makes it work, though, in Predator 2, though, is it kind of gives you that, everything really is in chaos right off the bat. Like, because... you get this big action scene right off the bat, but it also kind of stirs things around, like almost for like the audience kind of being like, I don't even know where I'm at right now. It's just chaos. Everybody's shooting each other. What the heck's going on? And then you sort of kind of start figuring out once, he comes back, Danny Glover comes back to the police station, and it's got like the classic police place where like they go in, there's like, 50 people being booked in at once, like always. There's a bunch of hookers in there and gangsters and all kinds of stuff. Like it's like that class. It's like it just makes it feel like, is this every day at the police station just ultimate chaos, just continuously?
Gosh, yeah, it's. But see, even in that scene, like you're trying to introduce Bill Paxton and some of the other characters. I would have liked to have just seen Danny Glover coming to work, and there's like they're talking about some past incident that happened. You kind of set up that there's a war going on, maybe some news stories and stuff, and. Maybe he's like in hot water because of something he did in a thing. And then you build up to the fight. And then you have, Bill Paxton, you get to see some more stuff. It just, not only would I like to see them, move some of that around, but in Predator, you don't get to know the other gorillas or you don't get to see this. They try to bring some characters into like there's this big war going on, and you got Jamaicans, you got like this Mexican group, and then you got Danny Glover and his people. Then they're trying to introduce you to all these people too, and I'm like, this is too much.
And then you got Gary Busey's like super CIA police force, the task force that comes in to try to solve all this stuff.
Yeah, there's too much going on, and it needed to be streamlined. Honestly, this one needed Shane Black, I think, to come in a little bit more.
Well, it's funny because this one has both Jim and John Thomas both writing again, but then again, this is, I guess, in a sense, only their second script. you know, because Shane Black, he was brought in because at first they thought he was going to kind of rewrite it. And then they're like, okay, in Predator 1, we'll just make you an actor. And that forces him to sort of be there. That was like their kind of plan. But I don't think he really did do any rewriting. I think he just acted in it and just, because he always says he never did. I mean, maybe they asked him this scene or that scene, but it wasn't like they did straight up, you know, rewriting. I think they technically used like the core script of Jim and John Thomas.
I think he did.
You think so?
I think so. I think most of the dialogue that he writes, it goes to his character. You could tell that.
Yeah. Well, I know because some of the stuff that literally comes from him.
Yeah. It just feels like there's some Shane Black in it. And it feels like they could have definitely, whatever happened here, they could have definitely used more of it here.
Yeah.
Because structurally this film falls apart. But when it mellows out and you get past all the other bullshit, when you kind of get rid of the other gang stuff, you kind of and it starts to be more about Danny Glover, Gary Busey, their dynamic, the Predator. Then I think this movie is actually, in some ways, does a few things better.
Yeah, no, I think there is a lot of kind of stuff, and the way it's shot too. Like this movie's shot extremely good.
Oh,
there are some great action scenes, especially there's that one I was thinking about when they're in like the subway train or whatnot like that, and it's got the flashing lights going and just the way it kind of lines up and everything like that. Like there's some really cool action pieces in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, even the blue, like when they're doing the whole UV light thing, which is a great, like it reminds me of how they kind of came up with the plan of the original one. They had, this is all going to happen. This is what we're going to do. And it kind of goes to shit a little bit. That whole scene is really, really cool. And it shows you how intelligent the Predator is and how he's going to, like, it seems like he's fucked. Like, but he's not going to get out of this, and really, it's the other way around. Everybody else is fucked.
He's just like, oh, you think that's all I see? Wait a second, let me just flip the dial on my on my mask. Okay, here we go. Now I can see you.
Yeah, I mean, all that's really good. I think that really, from that moment on, when they have the little bit of exposition, and Gary Busey finally reveals who he is, what he's doing. I would have liked that to be more at the beginning. But, when he does that, from that moment on, the movie, I think, is almost as good as the original in some ways. It's lacking that group of people that you root for.
Yeah, well, because you're definitely, I mean, you still have a little bit of a team, but it's not the same kind of thing. It's definitely more of the one man. It's more like Danny Glover's the one man. And then, Gary Busey, he's kind of the bad guy. He's not really necessarily, but he just has different like ways of going about stuff. I do think it's cool that he was the cleanup crew on the 87 Jungle thing. And that's where he's been just trying to figure out this alien incident this whole time. I think a lot of ideas of how they link the two movies 10 years apart. I think that's great. I think, I just, I don't think it was always, executed well, but, really also too the end battle with Danny Glover and Predator, how long that goes on. It's a long battle.
I thought it was funny. We did Tom Selleck, Runaway.
Yeah.
And Tom Selleck has the whole height thing in that one, and then they don't really execute it very well. And then they at the very end, like, oh yeah, he's got heights.
He's on an elevator.
Yeah, this one, the Danny Glover thing, they actually do a little bit better.
Well, it's more just like, because I feel he has more just that natural thing. It's just like, he's just, in a sense, he's just a regular police officer. Like, he's not a super trained commando, and I think that's almost kind of it. It's almost like, hey, here's a regular guy who's, he's still good at combat and so on like that. But you know what I mean? He's out here doing stuff that he's not even getting paid enough for. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, he's not supposed to be fighting an alien.
One of the things I love about Danny Glover in this movie is the way he'll just like, fuck you, fuck off. Like, just like in the conversation with that. I love it. He does it like 3 times in this movie. And I laughed every single time he did it.
Well, it's funny because they make it because it's Danny Glover, so you kind of like, you still always kind of picture him like he's almost like this one always sort of feels like it's a spin-off almost of Lethal Weapon in a weird way. Like, in a sense, it almost feels like if you told me that was his character from Lethal Weapon, I would almost believe it. Just like something happened in those 10 years since like, or whatever, or even since like Lethal Weapon 3. But it does have that thing that like his character, they try to make him out like, oh, he's done some like stuff before in the past where, it makes it feel like he was almost supposed to be like done by like Clint Eastwood, like some guy who is just going to be a little bit more hard edge. Because I feel Danny Glover, you always feel like you kind of root for him, but he's not like Clint Eastwood, where like Clint Eastwood could just do some really shitty stuff, but like you kind of go, that's Clint Eastwood's character. You know what I mean? Like he just does that because that's like sort of how it is. Like I always think like the outlaw Josie Wales, he's always spitting tobacco on that dog just for no reason at all, but just to do it. Just dog shows up, spits some tobacco on its head, the dog runs away and still comes back later.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. The Danny Glover's character is good. Bill Paxton's character is annoying, but I feel like all his characters are annoying.
I feel like it works for what it is because he just always plays that kind of slime ball kind of guy and whatnot. But I think it's just one of those ones like because it's Bill Paxton, you just love it. Like, you know what I mean? Like you almost just cheer for him being like that guy. And
he pulls it off in this film. He's the guy who's been killed by a Terminator, an alien, and a Predator. He's killed by all three of them, which is, I think that's a pretty cool thing to have.
Nobody else has been killed on screen by all three of those.
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. And I wish they could have used him a little bit better. I have the opening of the movie introducing him a little bit more because I feel like they kind of killed him too quick.
Yeah, I think that's kind of true. I feel like that's the thing is because this movie, I feel like at first they throw kind of all the gangster guys in there. So they almost have fodder to kill off a bunch of people without kind of killing off like your main characters. Cause I feel like that's the whole reason to sort of have all those gangster guys there is like, we just need people to get killed, but like people that you're not going to care as much about because they're criminals and so on. But I do feel that Bill Paxton, and I also do feel that Maria or whatever, she almost could have been in there even more too. I feel like they could have been like a trio that almost went towards the end. And then let's just say Bill Paxton kind of in that last like 25-minute like action scene that Danny Glover gets against the Predator, I feel like they almost could have been up to there instead of because they almost get killed off and there's still like 40 minutes of the movie left. Well, she doesn't get killed off. She just, hey, by the way, she's pregnant, and the Predator is like he's got a soft spot for that.
I think this movie
he's not, the Predator ain't giving an abortion here.
No. Oh my gosh. Not touching that one. I think, what I think would have been cool with this movie? I think what I'd like to have seen them do is, okay, you got a war zone going on. You have a certain section of the city that's completely blocked off. It's a literal war zone. The civilians are allowed in there. And you have a group of people living there, and you got the militants that are kind of taking this over this little section of the city. And also Gary Busey's in there because he knows what's there. He's looking for the Predator. And then you get Danny Glover in there. And so you have that group the whole movie. He's not supposed to be in there. Gary Busey's pissed because he snuck in, but he's there looking for something and trying to figure out what's going on because he's top cop. And then that group of people end up working together, and then they start getting picked off in an urban environment. It's different. It would have been better if you had that group from the whole beginning instead of just this convoluted, these people are over here, these people are over here. It's just, damn, they really screwed the pooch in a lot of ways. But the lore thing they did, they progressed the world. The world did progress with Predator 2 by a lot.
Yeah, it definitely does because it adds in a lot more of the Predator's weapons, a lot more of his new abilities. And then just as you kind of get farther on, once you sort of see the spaceship and you see that there's more Predators and you see that, oh, they've been doing this for years and they get kind of all kinds of stuff and they go all over the place and they got literally a xenomorph skull inside his trophy collection and so on like that. Cool. So yeah, like that right there is just one of those early ones. There is so many of these like little things that I think are totally awesome. I mean, it is one of those ones. I guess they could always do the thing where you could push a post-apocalyptic thing kind of going on here and give it that No Man's Land Batman kind of feel, or the Escape from LA, where you do kind of have even more chaos than's kind of going on. Because this one sort of has it where like the gangs are going kind of crazy, but it's still kind of a normal world setting. It hasn't gone super far yet. It's just gone just to 11 from what it is like in real life. You know what I mean? Just a little bit farther.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like this is definitely one of those films that could have. We see these all the time where it's like, man, this is good. Conceptually, they got some good ideas. There's some good execution here. If they could have just one more time went over the script.
Mm-hmm.
Just went over everything, just like do another once over, have somebody come in and punch it up. This is a movie that I think could have went from good to great. And I think we would have got a Predator 3 pretty much immediately, I think.
Yeah, instead of having to wait 10 more years.
Yeah.
Plus.
And then it'd be kind of a different vibe at that time. I think I could see a scenario where, one, if they don't release it at Thanksgiving against Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see there being like a 1992, 1993, maybe even 94 Predator 3. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what environment you would do that in. Maybe like a snowy kind of like.
Yeah. I know they always kind of make it that like, oh, the Predator, he likes conflict and he likes warmth for some reason. He's like, oh, the Predator doesn't like to wear a whole lot of clothes or something like that. But I feel like Predator you could take anywhere. And I think the idea of him actually in a very snowy area would be like a part of a challenge for him. You know what I mean? Because I don't feel like the Predator is like one of those ones like, I only like to go where I feel like I'm on vacation. I think that like they like to challenge themselves and so on like that. And I feel there is that kind of stuff there. Or really like the new Predator one coming out, like the idea of a period piece, I think always is kind of cool.
Oh yeah. I think I would have liked to seen one more that was like contemporary and then do like a whole trilogy in different time period. Like
a Western one. Yeah.
See, because that's the one I love Back to the Future 3, but the one weird flaw with it is that because they're the Western one feels kind of disjointed because it's so different aesthetically than the other ones. So if you would have had a fourth one that was like also different aesthetically, it would have made sense. With a Predator 3, I'd like to see a more contemporary one, and then another trilogy that was kind of like all over the place.
So the Back to the Future 3 one that I've always said is like, when I was a kid, it's like you have a time machine and you can go anywhere and you go to the Old West and it's not anything wrong there, but we have like 10,000 movies on that. Like you have this ability to go wherever you want. And this is where we're going.
They had to keep it in the family and keep it in like the McFly came over. Like it makes sense.
It makes sense retrospectively. As a kid, I'm looking at that going like, you guys messed up. That was always my thought. Even though I love Back to the Future 3, I actually probably almost like it. You know, it might be my second favorite one nowadays, but
I like it better than 2. I'll go ahead and say it. I do.
When I was a kid, 2 was my favorite because it went to the future. You know, and that was all you needed to impress me, I guess. But like as I got kind of older, it's like there's kind of other things there. But I feel it's like Predator is open to so many ideas.
That's the thing. Yeah.
And you know, and the thing too is like I always just hope it doesn't get that kind of thing where you get stuck that they always have to be in the jungle, because that's kind of the problem that Terminator has always fallen into. Is Terminator, they get stuck with like doing what worked, which is the cat and mouse thing. And the thing is, it's like Terminator could be anything. It doesn't have to be a horror movie cat and mouse chase. It can be all kinds of stuff. It could be a war movie. It could be an action movie. It could be a super space sci-fi movie. It could be whatever the hell you want. But they get stuck into like, well, that's what worked in Terminator 1 and 2, so why change? And it's like, no, change. Change is what you need.
Well, I think they're limited. Like, I don't want to say limited because obviously the first 2 Terminators, and again, I love Dark Fate, but
well, I like all the Terminators. It's just they just do the same thing over and over from 3 on, and I don't mean that in a bad way. But well, actually, Salvation's actually kind of different.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they're kind of limited conceptually. You have to keep it within a certain realm where it's something different. And you could say the same thing with RoboCop. You could say the same thing with you know, a lot of other action movies, Die Hard.
Yeah.
But Predator has the most potential for lore, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like because they keep him mysterious. You obviously see that they've been coming to Earth for a really long time, other time periods, other type of conflicts. There's just so much more you could do with Predator. There's definitely more to build on. And I'm glad they're finally doing that with Prey, and they're going to another time. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with it.
Yeah. And I hope that it always kind of, whenever there's a straight to TV type movie, I always get a little bit iffy that the budget's going to be kind of low and it's going to have that kind of television hokiness to it. But I hope that it still plays out like that's not the issue.
Who knows anymore? Because COVID kind of like fucks so much up.
That's true.
That it's like you have this movie and everybody's saying it's great. We'll be the judges Friday, but everybody's saying it's really good. It looks really good. And then you have the two things I'll bring up. There you have Batgirl that just they spent $90 million on and just said,
I said, fuck it.
I can't even.
I literally think that that's a ploy. I feel like that is.
Yes.
I think that they want to get some free advertising buzz, and then they're going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, here it's coming. I really think that's what's going on there.
There's one or two things with that, and we'll talk about this for a second because we'll talk about TV stuff as we go into Prey because we're going to transition to that. Mm-hmm. It could be a ploy. It could be one of those things where also they know it's really bad and terrible, and we're not going to show it to you. And then, oh, you asked for it, we're going to show it to you. And then they're kind of off the hook. Like, hey, we tried not to give you this. There's that thing. Or they could try to look what happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League. Those guys on there, those cultists who will attack you in a second if you say anything against their deities, Zack Snyder. They got a whole ass another movie made. Say what you want. Yeah. I mean, they convinced WB to make a whole ass another movie. They might have saw that and said, look at the market. Like, if you start getting release Batgirl going on.
Yep. Because I always say about that Justice League thing too. It's like, that's like, talk about the best way to really sell the same movie twice in a sense. I mean, I know that there's way more content, but like that content was just sitting there on the floor. It wasn't like it was, there's a little bit of brand new stuff in there, but for the most part, all you had to do was slap a movie back together and then resell it like it's a brand new movie. And you literally sold the same movie twice. Like, that's actually really impressive when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But Batgirl was supposed to be a straight to streaming movie, which is also another weird thing. Like
$90 million to make a straight to TV movie, it like just seems so.
Well, also here's another example, and this will transition into Prey. Star Wars. Obi-Wan comes out and it looks cheap.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's hokey looking.
But you look at I don't know did you see the trailer for Andor?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so they're doing that Cassian Andor film. He's a character from Rogue One, and people are less invested in this character than Obi-Wan. Everybody was excited about Obi-Wan, but I feel like they knew that, so they feel like they can kind of slack off. This Andor trailer looks like a straight up movie. Does not look like a TV show. It looks. Yeah. I wasn't even interested in that show, but the actors they have in it, the quality of it. They got a movie director. I like Deborah Chow, but she's a TV person. Yeah. This person, I don't know who's directing this, but clearly more of a cinematic style.
Yeah.
And so you really don't know what you're going to get anymore. So Obi-Wan looks cheap and kind of like, a fan film. And this Andor thing, the trailer looks better than anything in Obi-Wan. You should look at that.
Because that's mostly when I always get iffy when I see the straight to TV thing. It's not saying that it can't, because there is tons of great movies as time has gone on that are straight to TV that are really good movies. But I think sometimes when it comes down to blockbuster type stuff, that's a dangerous one to do straight to TV. Straight to TV works great for drama. It works great for movies like that that you don't need a whole lot going on. But, you just kind of have talking and acting and so on like that, But once you get down to special effects and all that stuff, a lot of times that's where, then they just kind of feel off. But I hope Prey kind of works out. I mean, even the two, because, the one that's like the lost child of all Predator movies, I think will be as the Predator 4, which was the weird one that seemed like it should have been the best thing ever. You got Shane Black returning not only as writer and director, but that one was kind of like a movie terrible. That I enjoyed it in a weird way, but I also thought it was just like a mixed feelings of why is it going for a hard comedy almost, but then it also has really good gore and violence in it at the top of it. It was such I think it was that thing that Shane Black realized that he made a lot of money off his action comedies, the ones that he kind of did in the 2000s and late 90s. That he's like, I'm going to attempt to do that with Predator, but I'm going to lean harder on the comedy. Because I mean, Nice Guys is a perfect example. That's an amazing movie.
I love Nice Guys.
It's so good. It's one of those movies I saw in theaters, loved it, but the more I watched it on Blu-ray, I just went it's so good. But I think that's the thing is he kind of took that kind of thing. He said, hey, this has been working for me for the last couple of movies. I'm going to do that with Predator. But in Predator, it's no, you got to keep it in comedy is the one genre that doesn't need to be mixed in with Predator. You mix in every other genre, sci-fi, horror, action, all that kind of stuff. You can mix drama in, I don't care, but just comedy is one of those ones that kind of throws it off. But as I said, it's one of those, I almost need to give it another go because I haven't seen it since theaters. And as I said, I felt like I just had such mixed kind of feelings with it, but it also had some good violence in it too. And violence will outweigh me on some things, but
yeah, I just did not get into it. But the good news is with Predator is that I think, and why it's going to transition to TV just fine, is that it's a type of film. It's a big, you can have a big box office type of feel to it, but also keep it low key because the whole idea is that it's kind of you're isolated and alone and with a small group of people against this thing. You don't have to have a huge scope. You can kind of keep it small and still make it look really good on a decent budget. I don't know what the budget is for Prey, but we'll see. But so far, everybody's saying, I've seen quotes like best horror film of the year.
That's kind of so it's even hitting hard on the horror. So, well, that's good. As I said, I'm still looking kind of forward to it. This movie, I feel like it sort of has flown kind of under the radar because I don't think the average person even knows there's a new Predator movie coming out
until this week. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because I felt like it's one of those ones. I really even look at the title Prey, like you could see a lot of people just bypass past it. Like it doesn't say, "Hey, it's a new Predator." I mean, once you tie them together, you're like, "Oh, Predator, Prey." I get it now, but
yeah, it's I think it's gonna get a following because I think it's gonna be good. And but honestly, Predator 2, for all its faults, of all the things it did wrong, it kind of was. I'm not saying it's as good as this film, so let me make that clear. It kind of did some of the same things that Empire Strikes Back did, where you introduce all these things into this world. You built this world a little bit, and then now you've expanded on it, and now it could be even bigger. So it really serves the franchise as a whole in terms of going forward, because now you've opened this world up to so much more than the original Predator did. So it deserves its credit for that. I think Danny Glover was good in it. I think, Bill Paxton was great in it. Gary Busey.
Yeah. All the
I never know how to feel about him.
I love Gary Busey. Like when I was thinking of him as, Point Break's always that one kind of intro, but anything he's sort of in, I love. The Buddy Holly story, fantastic.
Well, if you've never seen Predator 2, I think everything's obviously on Hulu right now because they want you to watch it, so you'll watch Prey.
Yeah, so you can also probably watch Predators and Alien vs. Predator and Alien vs. Predator Requiem and whatever the Predator, whatever the heck the fourth one's called.
Yeah, I think it's called The Predator. Yeah, it's called.
I kind of hate when they give titles like that. It's just like Predators was like one of those ones. Okay, it's an ode to like Alien, so I'll let it pass. But it's like just give it a number.
Yeah, Predator 5, Predator. Call it something else. Just don't call it The Predator.
I hate those kind of titles or it's like when you just name it the exact same thing, but it's actually a sequel. That's also super annoying. It's not a remake, but it's
Ghostbusters. Oh, Jesus. Anyway. Well, thank you for listening to this other Rewind review. Stay tuned for our Fast Forward to Prey, which obviously we're not recording right now because we haven't seen it. But when we release these episodes, probably I guess next week, that's what we'll do is Prey Fast Forward. So we'll be able to release everything next week. Stay tuned for more Channel 55 stuff. A lot of that stuff coming on. Maybe some new guests in the next couple of weeks. Working on some new things right now. I'll talk to Spencer about that here in a minute. But anyway, thanks for listening. Go to oldmanorange.com. You can find everything there for Spencer. At Via VHS on Twitter. At Via VHS Pod on Instagram. I think at Via VHS on TikTok. You can come yell at me there if you think Predator 2 is amazing and I'm an idiot. Let me know.
I think it's amazing.
Yeah. But thank y'all for listening. Y'all have a good one. And Via VHS is out.